first guest in the exclusive interview series is Dr. Peter VanderZaag, a Canadian farmer turned scientist and entrepreneur with many years of experience helping farmers in Africa and Asia, starting in Bangladesh in 1973. After receiving his PhD, he joined the International Potato Center, CIP, in 1979, where he led projects in Central Africa and Southeast Asia. In 1986, Peter initiated key work in China, where his contributions earned him the prestigious National Friendship Award in 2014. He has worked closely with the World Potato Congress, WPC, since 2013 and currently serves as its president and CEO. Peter is also a private potato breeder and runs Sunrise Potato, a large-scale potato farming operation in Canada with his family. Stay tuned for the full interview and be sure to subscribe to the Potatoes News channel for more exclusive.
We start to recording or look at interview. Yeah. Now, first question about for your experience. Yeah. And how do you get into the potato industry and with enterprise you to work in this field?
I grew up in Canada, born in Canada, but my parents are from the Netherlands. And of course, potatoes are very important in Europe after World War II. And so I think it's in my DNA, potato. DNA is there. So my father farmed in Canada, and I grew up with potato harvesting from when I was a little boy all the way through high school and then at university. I went to university to study more agriculture and study potatoes also. And I had an uncle in Holland, Dr. VanderZaag, who was a potato scientist, who encouraged me also. So I went to work in Bangladesh on potatoes when I was 22 years old. And from then on, I just kept on working on potatoes. So it hasn't stopped. It's part of my DNA.
Okay. Next question. Which do your project of research do you consider or must significant? Yeah.
I think for me, I've worked in 60 countries on potatoes, 60, including China, Vietnam, countries that came out of very difficult times, and other countries like Laos, and all through Africa, South Pacific. So my main focus has always been, how can I help the farmers in each country improve their production? And I'm talking as a farmer and as a scientist, listening to them and working with them. To me, that's been my biggest satisfaction, is helping farmers wherever they're at to help them improve. That's been my pleasure.
Okay. Какие задачи и цели вы ставите перед собой? Which is your role in the new president and CEO of World Potato Congress?
It's been around for 30 years. But really, it was only a small group of people leading it, and it was basically working for the global north. When I became involved with the World Potato Congress, I wanted to focus it away from the global north to helping also the global south. And this has been my main effort. And over I've been with the board now for about 10 years. And I have shifted the direction of the focus of the organization away from just the global north to a global mandate. We have made it into a biennial Congress. We have lots of requests to host a Congress, so we're making it every 2 years. Secondly, we in Dublin, the edition of Dublin released, which was how we can foster partnerships between the rich countries and those scientists there with poorer countries, and how can we help them in their work? So that the Declaration of Dublin was a way to focus our attention on helping those who were in need. Then we also had a visioning set exercise, and we developed topic can work together around the world by sharing information in a network. And these networks have meetings at the Congress and also have webinars and have other ways of getting together to discuss issues of common concern and issue. And this has been a great success. And we're building on this. So networks, partnerships, and Congress every 2 years are the main focuses of our organization.
Okay, I think in English. What global trends do you see in potato industry for next 5 or 10 years?
This is a good question. It's hard to answer. I think that the challenge we face in the world today, there's not enough money for research in agriculture. The talk is there, but the money is not. And especially when you go to countries in Africa, even in South Asia, there's not enough money. China is the only country that has a lot of money for research and development. And they argue we do it because we have so many people on so few hectares of land. We have to do better. How do we encourage other countries to put more money into agriculture to become self-sufficient? This is especially true in Africa. And I think that our work at the World Potato Congress and even the CGIAR is helping to promote this kind of improved focus on agriculture with impact. How do we have impact? How do we make steps that the research work has application and has results in farmers' fields? That's one. Number two, I think that the whole thing of trade will continue to increase. Trade between countries where there's too many potatoes and those who don't have enough will continue to expand, especially for French fries and table potatoes. So I see those as trends that are going to affect the overall marketing of potatoes in the world. And I think that we'll see fewer and fewer spots in the world where potatoes is in short supply because of trade allowing for the shortcome to be filled.
Okay, next question. How is the potato market changing in the context of climate change and global population growth?
I think, for example, China, for example, they are doing a great job now of producing more and more French fries themselves. They're even exporting French fries to neighboring countries. In contrast, countries like Japan and Hong Kong and other Philippines, Indonesia are still importing, and they will continue to import. In Africa, we see a stream of potatoes moving from India, for example, now exporting to Russia, or other countries in the Middle East for certain periods of time. And I think this is going to keep going also with East Africa. So I see it, there's a whole bunch of moving parts. It's hard to say what is exactly change is a factor. When heavy rains come in a certain area, crops are lost, somebody else can provide potatoes to meet that need. For example, this past season, Bangladesh had a very poor crop. And Bangladesh's poor crop, India can help provide potatoes for Bangladesh. So there's a quick response as well.
Next question. What are the main challenge facing farmer or potato producer today?
Well, maybe I'm thinking too much of Canada, but I think it's true in many countries. Regulations imposed by the government hamper or stop farmers from making progress. And I think this is also a problem of regulations, and the neighboring country does not have that regulations that give you an unfair disadvantage. So regulations is one problem. I think also the technologies now I want to talk about cisgenics. Cisgenic potatoes for late blight resistance, where you move genes from the potato of one variety, put the gene for late blight resistance into another variety. So the potato genes are still potato genes, but now you have a variety with 3 or 4 major genes for resistance to late blight that can grow well. For example, that was introduced into Uganda by SIP and the Michigan State University a few years ago. It did fantastically well in Uganda with the variety Victoria, which is their own variety, resistant to late blight. But the government refused to accept it. So now they're still back with late blight susceptible varieties in production. to cisgenic potatoes. So how will this play out? It takes a lot of work to get this accepted by government officials who think it's maybe dangerous or unhealthy, when in fact, it's totally safe. So this is a political issue, again, around regulations and rules that stop it from progressing. I think that the diploid potato that we grow in Russia and in Canada has four traits for every, four alleles for every trait.
Yeah.
With diploid, you only have two. And this diploid potato, you can make much faster progress. 2 by 2 is 4, 4 by 4 is 16. So you have 16 possibilities. Now you only have 4 possibilities when you have a cross. And this is how you can more develop varieties with adaptation to climate change, to diseases, for yield, for dry matter, for reducing sugars. So I see great potential in diploid potatoes, and this is going to happen. I'm very much involved with this in China, as well as in other parts of the world through SIP, the International Potato Center. And this is going to make a big change in the coming years.
Next question. Which modern technologies and innovation do you find most promising for increased potato yields and sustainability?
Let's talk about corn, maize for a minute. Maize in 1960, that's 60 some years ago, they started doing the hybrid maize with inbred lines, making the cross, and maize production and yield has increased every year up to now through genetics. Potato production yields have stayed more or less the same, or maybe got a wee bit because of fertilizer use, pesticide use, but the genetics has not changed. I think when we get to the diploid potato, we'll follow the same trend as what happened with maize over the last 60 years. So the 2 by 2 cross with inbred lines will give you great results in producing higher yields of better quality potatoes with the traits that are demanded by the consumer and will be cherished by the farmers as well as all those in the whole value chain.
Okay. Next question. What role do you think genetic research and breeding play in the development in the potato industry?
Let me talk here about AI, artificial intelligence. You know, I farm with my daughter and my son-in-law, and they're in their 30s. And for them, AI technology is very exciting. They love it. And it's on your cell phone, it's on your iPad, it's on your tractors and your harvesters. It's everywhere on your so you can farm in a way that's much more scientific. It's also data collection is much more easy. Even watering, the irrigation system. All these things are now, I would say, have artificial intelligence, and it makes farming so much more exciting in a way. Factual, you know what you're doing, the facts are there. Better for you. I think AI overall is very, very, very positive. But there also can be misuse of it. And I think we have to be very careful how we look at AI and not get too far down the road of only thinking. I think the nose and the eyes are very important. When I store potatoes on our farm, we have the AI, but I also want to go in there and smell and look. So you have to have both. I think often we go too far one way and forget the other way. So I believe in the nose and the eyes is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you, Peter, because when you come in cold storage, you need checking for your eyes and for your nose, because which country or region do you believe are currently leading in the potato industry now?
Okay. Before it was the USSR, parts of Eastern Europe were number one, okay, the largest area of production. The US and Canada was way down. Africa was very small. What's happened now is that Asia has become the large producer of potatoes. If you look at China, they grow 1/4 of the world's potatoes. India grows 1/8 of the world's potatoes. Then you have Bangladesh, is now number 6 or 7 or 8 in the world potato production ranking. Why did this happen? They have learned to grow rice. And after rice, you have a dry season, which is short, and their potato fits beautifully. So all of South Asia has adopted this. China has, of course, 4 different ecological zones for potatoes, including the south where they do it after rice. So this has been a major change in the world. And of course, 60% of the world's population lives in Asia. So they also now produce over 60% of the world's potatoes. So you see a balance is taking place. Europe is going down. Also a balance is taking place. North America is stable. South America is minor. But Africa is also growing rapidly. Yeah. And there is a food that is helping feed the populations, especially in all of East Africa, all the way from Egypt, all the way down to South Africa, is a very important part now where potatoes are becoming often number 1 crop and often still number 2 crop in the overall diet. So this has changed dramatically the world map of potatoes. And it's amazing to see this, and I'm happy to see this. I've worked in Bangladesh starting in 1973 to see the changes there. I worked in Rwanda from 1979 to see the changes there. I worked in China from 1986 to see the changes there. It's amazing to see those kind of increase in potato production.
Yeah. Next question. What are the main objectives of the World Potato Congress in terms of international cooperation?
In Dublin, we were the Irish aid gave us a good amount of money to bring scientists and extension workers from the developing countries to Dublin. We had 50 invited to come. It was very successful. These 50 were mostly from African countries, and they were very happy to come. And then the partnerships that have developed from that have helped their countries and has allowed European countries especially to link with some of these African countries to help them with their potato production. In Adelaide, we did the same thing. Didn't have quite the same success. But again, we sponsored delegates from developing countries to come to Adelaide to study and learn and meet other scientists from around the world and extension workers, and again, develop relationships. So I think this is one of the main efforts we have. Second effort we have is research money is very small in many countries. So how can we make that money go further? So what the World Potato Congress is doing is developing networks where we share knowledge amongst people on a certain discipline, whether it's on late blight, whether it's on seed production, marketing, and they work together to share information and results, both by meeting in person at the Congress, by webinars, and by meetings, virtual meetings online. So this is happening. So the 2 main things that we're trying to encourage at low cost is bring people together from the global north, the global south, through partnerships and through networking.
How do you assess of the contribution of developing countries such as India and China to global potato production and processing?
You know, I was just in China, for example. I just came back from China a couple weeks ago. And the number of young scientists and young farmers and young people involved in growing potatoes, to me, is very encouraging. In Canada, I see the same thing. Many young family members are now taking over the farms of their parents, and want to grow potatoes. I think the AI, the way things have developed has allowed young people to become more interested in growing potatoes now, because it's more of a, I won't say it's a modern way, but it's a way that is better for attracting young people to get into potato farming because of the AI, that all the technology that's available, and this has make things rapidly expand. I see that same thing in East Africa. East Africa too, many are involved in potato production, whether it's used through seed production technologies that are new, aeroponics, apical rooted cuttings, different ways that they can be involved that are exciting and different and new and have great impact. So I think, to me, I see great excitement with young generation in potato production around the world. And this is good news for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next question. What measure do you think are most important for ensuring food security for potatoes?
You know, potato is an amazing, that tuber is an amazing crop. Can produce as much energy and protein per unit of water, per unit of land, per unit of input than the potato. So there are so many advantages to the growing potatoes over other crops because of its nutritional value. It's rapidly able to grow. And this has made it, often we don't talk about this enough. Even the protein content of potatoes is a very valuable protein. All the essential amino acids, except for 2, are in a potato. Potato requires very little water to grow a crop. That's what we see in all of South Asia after rice. They grow potato because it can grow on residual moisture on land that is vacant otherwise. So I think that this is a big advantage, the efficiency of producing protein and energy. I think the challenge we feel is the post-harvest losses. If you go to South Asia, you go to Africa, the post-harvest losses are still very high. And I think that we can learn from China. China has a lot of factories now that make noodles and dehydrated products from potatoes. If more of that could be done in other countries as well, we could have a great way of storing potatoes without having them go rotten or losing them. So this is, I think, an area where we have to balance things out. Fresh is important, of course, but processing is also important, which used to be very important also in Eastern Europe. But China now has become the leader in dehydration of potato to starch or flakes. So I think for food security, the old Peruvian and potato in clay pots, and that was food security for a long time. You could store it for a long time. So I think that's important. I think for the short term, though, I think that for food security, seed potato production in East Africa is probably the #1 issue that results in poor yields. So seed potato production with tissue culture, with aeroponics, with apical rooted cuttings are good ways and rapid ways to improve production in all of that part of Africa where the yields are still, relatively speaking, very low. Because right now, seed production only maybe makes 2% of the total production, maybe 4% maximum. So that's the big challenge we face in that part of the world.
Okay. Next question. How can the producers adapt for changing conditions such as water shortages or climate change?
You know, I think this goes back to my comment about diploid potato. The diploid potato, the 2x2X, will allow you very rapidly to improve potato genetics to meet the global challenges of climate change, floods, drought, whatever it may be. I think that's the way to go. And the way we now understand the potato genome, the 12 chromosomes, and we know exactly where everything is in those 12 chromosomes. that
Mhm.
helps us understand how we can then do diploid breeding with focus on what traits we want and where they are, and then make it with results. And I think this is the future that's going to help us greatly adapt to climate change and whatever it throws at us, wherever it is in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure I agree. Next question. What needs to be done to raise awareness and promote potatoes as available food source? It's very
I think
difficult.
education. It starts in the schools. It starts with it goes with the media. It goes with government. I think, and also I think we as potato scientists and farmers need to do a better job of promoting the value of the potato for its protein, for its energy, for its efficiency in producing food per unit of water and input. So I think we have to raise the awareness through education and communication strategies that are global. I think it's working to some extent. I think, for example, what I see in China, they launched the potato as a staple food strategy in 2015. And in China, they made a very good effort then that the universities, the schools, government offices where they had food must serve potatoes every meal. That's a great strategy. And then it not only increases potato consumption, increases potato demand, but it also leads to healthier people. So I think there's good logic behind such a strategy. Now we have, this year we launched the International Day of the Potato on May the 30th. Again, it's a way to create awareness of the world of what is the potato and why it's so important. And that day alone, having that day on May the 30th to promote the potato globally through FAO, through the World Potato Congress, through SIP, through different country governments, is another way to create this awareness effectively.
Okay. What message would you like to convey to young scientists and agronomists who are just starting with generating the potato industry?
Exciting times are ahead. Very exciting. I think I've talked to you already about the whole thing of genetics, of cisgenics, of diploid potato breeding, of finding solutions to climate change challenges, are all going to allow young scientists, whether they're in university or already finished university, to be involved in this exciting work, whether it's in the laboratory, in the greenhouse, or in the farmers' fields. We're going to have impact. And that impact will affect not only the farmer, the whole value chain, but it also will give you great satisfaction as a person to see this happen. I've done this now for a long time, almost 50 years I've been doing this kind of work. And I'm getting to be an old guy now, but the point is my satisfaction comes from seeing progress being made step by step along the way. And young scientists are going to see some major impacts from their work in the years ahead. So you cannot go wrong being a potato specialist in the years ahead to feed the world's population.
Okay, very good. Next question. Как вы видите будущее, the future of potatoes and crop and as a product of a global economy?
If you look at a map of the world, global map of the world, and color it by country what their yield is, many countries in Africa still have the red color, which means low yield. Then you go to South Asia and you see mostly medium yields, medium, but also there's parts of those countries that have still very low yields. And I think the future for me is that we have to help those farmers in that area to improve their production, to make them economically viable. It'll make the whole economy of that area of the country, or that whole country, prosper. And I think that, to me, the challenge lies here, that we have to help the areas where their yields are poor, for whatever reason, to solve those constraints, to overcome those constraints, to get improved production to help the whole area prosper. So I think this is going to change. And I think the diploid potato also is going to change how we look at potatoes. And I think the diploid potato will also help foster improvement in those areas where they have problems. So I think the global economy will improve with potatoes, but it will not be always balanced. So we have to help those areas that are weak. That's my goal with our partnerships and networking as well.
What do you enjoy doing outside of work? How do you recharge and find inspiration for new projects?
Well, my wife would say I'm a workaholic. She says you have only one focus, that's work. What you like to do. And I think for me that's true. I enjoy what I do. I do it every day. I had meetings yesterday with the Philippines and other countries in part of the world. It just I have so many connections around the world that my diversity of interests rely on the diversity of people I work with around the world. And so my recharging, our own farm is where I recharge. To walk the field to see that they're green, or they're harvesting good potatoes, or walking into storage and smelling the potatoes in the bins. That's how I recharge and how I get inspired to keep going with my other global work with the World Potato Congress. So it's really DNA is potatoes, and my focus is potatoes, but it's diverse. So I think that's my blessing, to have both the hands-on and the communications.
Okay, Peter, thanks so much for your answer. And finish maybe question. Not question. What do you want to set people who looking with video and farmer, science people, government people maybe looking with video? What do you want to set for with people? Yeah.
My challenge to all of you is right now there's 1 billion people in the world who are hungry. 1 billion. And how can we help those 1 billion people not be hungry? And I think the potato, whether it's in Russia or Canada or India or Kenya, can play a role in helping alleviate that poverty. And I think that is what drives me daily. How do we help alleviate those who have not enough to eat? And how do we alleviate that poverty? Having worked in China during the last 10 years or more, where we did the poverty alleviation strategy, everybody had to think about, how do I alleviate poverty or hunger? And I think this is a global challenge as well. How do we alleviate that hunger that exists today? So that's a challenge for every one of us to think about.
Thanks so much, Peter.
And also, Victor, thank you very much for the opportunity. You do a great job of promoting the potato around the world through Potato News. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks so much, Peter.